So thank you, Shari Easton, for joining us today on the Cash Flow Show to discuss more about your business, Masterful Tile Creations, and how you manage cash flow in your business. But yeah, so thank you for doing this. If you want, we could just jump in. Can you tell me a little bit about your business first and what you do exactly?
Okay, so my business, I am the installer of tile, whether it's stone, ceramic, porcelain, granite,
Mhm.
uh, all those forms of tile. I don't do the large slabs, so it's only the tile. They've gotten really large with their tile these days, almost into slab, but no. So I install indoors, outdoors. What I usually do is remodels at this stage. I have in the past worked for a lot of builders who are doing new housing and stuff like that. I generally stay away from the industry with all the business, the commercial end of everything. I tend to like to stick to just the remodels, the one-on-one customers. So that's what I do.
Okay.
I repair all kinds of things from
Mhm.
earthquake damage, settling problems, just updating, and that's what I do. I remodel.
Mhm. So I was wondering, with so many different types of projects, how do you normally go about financing each project? Because I'm assuming you'd have to get like inventory and I mean, do they supply that? Do you go and find the tile? How does that work?
My company, I consider my company a full service company because I am very artistic. So I can help the customers who have no clue what they want and just know that they need something different. I can either meet with them at the different tile shops we have, or I can actually come. I always come and take a look at the actual house first. And if they need help designing what they want, then I take a look at what their house is designed already, like what the color schemes are, and what what the themes are basically. And I go around to different tile shops and I pull samples for them if they don't have time to go shopping or really don't want to go shopping. And I bring all the samples to the house. I always make sure the samples are brought to the house because they look different in the tile shops than they do at the actual place where you're at with your own lighting. So I I have one customer that I did that 8 different times before she finally selected what she liked. And so that's just part of my job. I love to help the customer actually visualize what they're doing. So if they have no clue about what they want, I take graph paper. I don't know if you can see it, but it's graph paper. So it's got the little lines crisscrossed all around it. It makes it so easy to just use each square as a single foot, so that you can draw it out to scale. And it really helps the customer to really see what the project is going to look like with the tile that they actually want to put on there. And that's helped a lot because a lot of people can't really visualize. They have a hard time visualizing because they don't have the artistic side like I have. And so I help them to choose the grout colors. I've got my different charts, and then yeah, that's what I do. I go from the start to the finish. I actually do all the tear out and I build it myself. So, okay, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
There we
Yeah. So that's a really involved process going from start to finish and like finding the tile samples and showing them and going back and forth. Does that affect how you do your pricing and billing?
There are many things that affect the pricing. A lot of people think you can generally just give a ballpark figure, but the way I do my pricing is based on the tile that you're actually selecting because the different tiles require different setting materials. Sometimes different tiles, like the stone products, they will require sealing before you even do the grouting, or sealing afterwards. The kind of grout that I'm actually using actually requires pre-sealing. So the pattern that you want it in makes a huge difference on the cost, because different patterns require adding more percentage of waste factor into the order when you order the materials. Some of them also take a lot longer to install. So that's going to affect the price that you're going to charge. And I charge a lot of times per square foot. Most of the time it's per square foot of the project. So on some repairs I'll charge by the hour, but a lot of the tear out the whole shower and rebuild a whole new shower kind of project, I'm charging by the square foot, because you're going to have to possibly do a lot of leveling a floor or leveling a wall that has a big bow in it, because your tile's not going to be able to follow along the bow because it's a long tile or a large tile. So you have to actually level the wall. So there's a lot of different factors involved that affect the price. I don't just have a general, well, I work for $5 a square foot price. There's a lot of things that are involved that change the price.
Right. And do you at all like take an advance on the project so you can kind of get started going around, or do you bill at the end, or how do you deal with that aspect of cash flow?
I used to have I learned the hard way. I used to have credit accounts at different tile shops, but I had in the past worked with 7 different crews, and I did not have an office person. I wore every hat in the company as well, because I also installed, plus did all the estimates, plus did all the payroll, plus I did everything. So I was overwhelmed, and we did not get everything paid off properly. So what I switched over to doing was all materials got paid up front, period. I do not start a job without all the materials paid up front. And at this stage, I also require 25% of the labor to be paid up front. As my company does all the delivery, it handles all of the picking up of, so basically I have all the freight of anywhere that I pick up the products, because I don't just buy products at one store. I have about 5 different shops I purchase things from. And so I also charge a little bit more on every product than what I get, because I get installer prices. So as a company, I make a profit also off of the materials, as well as a profit off the labor.
That makes sense. So how do you manage all of that? Is there a process or program that you use to kind of keep track of all this?
No, I'm very much not hardwired to be the IT person, and it would be really awesome if I did have a program. But my computer, my laptop completely shut down. I lost all of my software. I had software. I had Microsoft Works Word that had my program. I could take my estimates and turn them into the statements, which is what the invoices are.
Okay.
Or I could turn them into a contractor job ticket and do all my mathematical stuff on it, and then print it off and all that. But I have to have some new software at this point. I've got a new laptop, and I just do it all by hand. I have handwritten. Well, I thankfully had printed off. This is a contractor job ticket. So basically all my paperwork pretty much looks all the same. I put my company name, my address, my cell phone, my email on the heading. And then I just have the job, the address, the city and state, the contact numbers and emails, and the date. And then I have all this space for all the information to write, all the information I have. And then I just change the heading for whether it's the statement, the estimate, the materials. My materials page is much longer, because a lot of times I fill that whole thing up. There's a lot of things that go into these jobs, and there's a whole lot of details. And frankly, I had to learn from the bottom up. I did not go to any kind of training for this job. I actually began, my husband at the time was a tile installer, and he caught his helper stealing. So he fired him, and he asked me to shut my house cleaning company down. And so I joined as his helper, and I started from the ground up learning the job just as a helper. So I learned aspect of this job. And that's how I learned. It was hands-on.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go from being completely new to just kind of mastering that. How long ago was it that you started?
That was about, let me see. It was approximately 2002, I believe, when I started.
Okay.
So,
And have your challenges, especially related to cash flow, changed since then? Are there any things that you've learned or different obstacles that you've had to?
what I learned was my priority of enjoying life required that I not have 7 crews. Because I was just a small company. I didn't have any employees. So all the crews were not my employees. They were all contract labor who were other installers like me, who would get work anywhere they could, just like me. And I would contract them to do a job. We actually had guys who were really good at floors, who were really good at showers, who were really good at backsplashes, some who were really good at just doing all the grouting for all those jobs, some who were really good at going back and cleaning up and fixing things and making sure the job was just spot perfect. So we had various crews, and I found that it overwhelmed me because I was basically working 24/7 with trying to raise 3 kids. So that just we lost a major account who had gone with another company. We we were actually trying to help them get some better tile prices, and that particular company did have other trades within their company as well. So the major builder actually switched over to using that company, and 4 of us tradesmen who were working for that builder lost our job with them. And that was very disappointing for the other guys, but for me, I was like, oh, phew, thank God I'm not working so hard anymore. It was a huge breath of relief for me because I was extremely overwhelmed. So my priorities over the years have changed. My speed on the job has changed. My focus on what my company is like and why I do my job has changed. My focus now is to not just get as many jobs as I can and make as much money as I can. My focus is to help each and every customer have the best quality, best built job that I can give them that's going to last for the next 50 years. There's a lot of quality out there that will just last just long enough for the warranty to expire, for one more year to pass, and then the tile work starts failing and starts popping up from the floor, or the shower's not working right, or there's leaking in the closet because the pan wasn't installed correctly, or something like that. And I take my time to build the jobs to where that's not going to happen at all. And the only reason why that tile is going to need to come out is because it's been 50 years and they would need to update the look.
Well, that makes sense.
I do not try to bid my jobs to be the least expensive installer so I can get work. I'm not desperate for work like that. I do not try to get everybody. I know that my company suits a certain quality of customer who's looking for certain quality, who's not going to mind paying a little bit more than the cheaper installer. My prices are mid-range. I'm not the most expensive, and I'm definitely not the cheapest. I take different steps that other people don't necessarily take. Like in my showers, I waterproof all my walls. In an upstairs shower that has failed the first time and has caused the ceiling downstairs to cave in because of leaking and stuff like that, I take a measure to completely waterproof the floor and the walls. The floors are not generally supposed to be waterproofed in a shower because the shower pan is designed to allow the water to soak through the grout joints of the floor and then drain out in the plumbing that's right there at the drain. It has weep holes, but those weep holes many times get plugged and the shower doesn't do its job. And if the corners of the shower pan weren't folded correctly, or if it wasn't sealed correctly, or if somebody nailed holes nail the nails too low and water's able to get into those places where the nails are, your pan's going to start leaking and causing all kinds of problems. And so I do things like I have a grout that most of the installers don't even like using this grout. It's a totally different formula. It's acrylic, and when it dries, it's waterproof. I mean, all the way through the whole body. So the color is already pre-mixed. It comes in a bucket, and you have to use microfiber, the microfiber rags to clean it up. Or you wind up with a big mess that you have to take mineral spirits to even get the residue off the tile. And you have to pre-seal all stonework. There's some rough, rough tile that has to be sealed with a grout release before you use. Otherwise, the grout just sticks all over it, and it's really, really difficult to get it off. So you have a much slower pace with that grout. It takes longer, and I actually charge to grout using this grout. But when it's done, it's waterproof. And so you never have to seal it. You never have to go back and try to scrub the grout joints because the grout is getting discolored and all that stuff. The color stays very consistent. So those kinds of things make me stand out above other installers. And it's part of the quality that has kept me around for a long time doing this job, and continues to get my name passed to those kind of customers who care about those qualities.
Right. No, quality is definitely important, and it's you don't necessarily, especially in a kind of work like this, you don't want the cheapest option available, and people who go for that typically, if you price yourself at that point where you are the cheapest option, then you're pricing yourself out of quality.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting with that. And speaking of like referrals and business, did COVID affect your business at all? And if so, like, how did you handle that?
At first it did, because everybody was so afraid of, having anybody in their house. And what does my job do? I go in everybody's house. So for the first 3 months, I really had no work. And then once everybody started loosening up and life just kept requiring people like me, I am one of the necessary workers, because, when you've got a shower pan leak, I have to go fix it. It's not just a plumber, So yeah, it affected me at first, but once things started picking up, I've stayed really consistent again.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. So one thing I was wondering is, do you have any kind of typical recurring expenses that happen outside of what a specific client needs? If that makes sense.
Do you mean for the company?
Yes, for the company.
Other than what the client needs, like things like constant gas, you need a really good working vehicle, because I can typically drive 3,000 miles a month doing this job, just around town. And between all the tile shops, the estimates, and see, I give free estimates. I don't charge for my estimates. So as having the different kind of saws to cut the tiles with is a real important factor. We invested in a wet saw, but I also had installers that solely used hand grinders with diamond blades on them. So it just depends on your preferred method of using the tools, and what kind of stuff you're cutting, and how fast you're getting. And so, yeah, I had one installer that only worked with a grinder. That's what he preferred.
Right. And
so that investment is an important investment for the.
And I'm assuming these tools can get quite expensive.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming these tools can get quite expensive, and they wear out fairly quickly. Do you ever have to get like financing to replace them?
They can depend. No, I've never had to finance anything. I've always just started from the basic and worked my way up.
Okay.
Where there's a will, there's a way. We have Harbor Freight over here where they sell brands that are less expensive than the major stores like Lowe's or Home Depot. And I've found that the tools that I use are quite sufficiently, they're really good enough from those kind of shops to last me the investing, the amount that I invest in those tools, I get my money's worth out of it for how long they last.
Okay.
I could pick up a hand grinder for $15
Mhm.
and
So
the
that's
actual blade for $10, $12, $15. So I actually have the ability to cut all the tile for $30.
okay.
It's just, the wet saws at other shops like tile shops, you can invest $1,000 in a wet saw. But from Harbor Freight, it's more like $350 for the stand and the actual wet saw. So it just depends on where you're buying your tools and what tools you think you need based on how much work you're doing.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Definitely. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, what advice would you give someone looking to start their own tile artisan business, especially in regards of like financing or getting started? What do they essentially need to go out and start making awesome tile work?
If they had never done any of it before, I would suggest starting out just like I did. Learn from the bottom up everything that this job needs. Just hire on as a helper with somebody. And then that way you're getting to know all the tools, you're getting to know all the processes, you're getting to know if the person that you're working with allows you to be there during estimates, you're learning how to do all that stuff hands-on and getting a free education and getting paid while you're working and learning at the same time, which is what I did. That's the advice that I would give. I'm sure that you could learn something like this in a trade school if you're starting really young and you have the option like VOTEC here, during senior year of high school, free education for trades. You could do something like that. But my best advice on somebody who's already an adult out here like me, I would start on as a helper and just learn the job from the bottom up, because that way you're going to know everything about this job.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and that's a really great way to really understand what you need when you go out on your own. Having those processes down and understanding the tool set, as you said, because I'm sure a lot of people might think they need something that's more expensive when they don't getting started, but there's so many different tools out there.
Exactly. And as well as getting your face out there with the tile shops. And see, that was one of the most important things. I know I stood out because I was a woman. There's not a lot of women doing this. And so my reputation of the quality of work I did was a factor in why I still get a lot of work. So as a common male in this job, you might want to just really just get your name and your face familiar with the people. That's where my work comes from. The only advertising I do besides the actual magnets that we have on our truck that we just got recently was the business cards that I have at the tile shops, because when people are at the tile shops looking at tile, they want an installer. And so they ask for people for recommendations from the people behind the counters. And so you leave your business cards there at the counter and they hand 3 of them out and say, here's 3 that we would recommend. And so what's real important is getting your name, your face familiar to those people at the shops, because if you have a good reputation, they're going to take your business card and they're going to offer it to other people. If you don't have a good reputation, they're not going to hand your cards out. They're not going to be an avenue of reference. Another thing that I've done is join a networking group, and we have a meeting every Wednesday, and it's just for self-employed people and small businesses, self-employed people. And we recommend and refer jobs to each other. So that's another way that you can, network your business. So those are things that come up to answer that question that I can think of.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, Shari. That's extremely useful. I think it's great that, you don't have to spend so much on marketing necessarily. A lot of people tend to think, just put as many ads out there as possible. But there's cost-effective ways to kind of get your name out there, so long as you have, the reputation and the skills to back it up. So yeah, no, thank you so much. So Shari, one last thing I wanted to ask is, how can people find you if they want to know more about your work? Is there an email?
Well, I have an email, SHARIGRACE. That's Shari Grace 1968 at gmail.com. And I'm also going to be, in the very near future, getting a website so people can actually look at the examples of the work that I do, and I'll be on the web. So when that happens, I will be able to let people know as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Shari.